think I'm the yellow one here. If I jump, yes, I'm the yellow one. So punching this guy. Not losing much health. What a fight this is. Oh, I think I'm about to lose. My health bar is the red one. Come on, just finish me off. It's not doing much, really. Come on. Kill me, please. Okay. Well, I lost. That's a preview of things to come later. So this video is another look into using Claude Code and AI tools in general, and mainly looking at the sort of tools, environment, ecosystem that is building up around them. First thing I should say is that I haven't fixed any of the audio issues that have been plaguing me in other videos. It seems like when I move between different programs, especially if I alt-tab between them, it causes really annoying and bad microphone problems. So I'll try to avoid tabbing between programs as much as possible, but I often do it without thinking. Okay. So last time I was just using Claude to build me an application for glitching out images, and that was just done using vanilla Claude, so just running Claude in the terminal, not giving it any skills or anything like that, just using it in its most basic way, prompting it to build me a program. This time I thought I would look at this model context protocol. We have an idea here of what it does. It basically kind of acts as an in-between, like a natural language way you can interact with programs or servers or APIs on the web, that kind of thing. So you can use it to, in natural language, use a program how you would how you'd normally use it with some tools or writing code. This way allows you to just have Claude or another agent be sort of in the middle, and you ask it questions in a way you normally would, and it interfaces with that program, database or API, and gives you results back from that. So what I did at first was follow this example here of building an MCP server, which just has you build a simple request for the weather. So you write some code and you ask Claude what is the weather in this location, blah blah blah, and it tells you. So if I go into this directory here, I have an example of it here. So this is just following the example. I have this weather.py file, which I think I've opened here. Yeah. So this is just following the example. Basically, you just create this. Well, first of all, I should say I'm using this MCP library that I installed using UV. This is like the standard MCP Python library, and you decorate your methods with something like this MCP tool, and you tell it what to do basically. So this method base is just given a latitude and a longitude. It will use this weather API, this US weather API, to fetch the temperature weather forecast at the current time from that location and give it back to you in a structured way. So when I've got this MCP server running, it will, and I ask it anything about the weather, it will use this method to look up the weather using a latitude and longitude, and making this API call and provide the information back in this format. So if I just show you, Alt-tab, I did a tab already. If I just run Claude in here, I'm going to type in MCP, so you can see, it sees that I've got this weather MCP connected. So if I say to it now, what is the weather in New York City? It should automatically pick up that it's got this MCP server and use that. So here we go, tool use. It's telling me that it's going to use the tool. It's just asking for permission to use the tool actually. So here we go, it's going to use this. It's got the latitude and longitude. and if I press yes, I want it to proceed. It basically will use that function that I've made to call that API and get the data. So let's just wait for it to do that. See its token usage, and it should come back fairly quickly. Okay, it prints this. I don't know why it prints it like that, but here we go. So Saturday night. Is that true? Is it Saturday in the US now? I don't think so. It's Friday here. Temperature 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind 6 to 50 miles per hour north. Forecast mostly clear. Okay, let's just see. Weather, New York. 4 degrees Celsius. 4 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit. 39 degrees, what did it say? 46. Okay, well, so something's appear wrong. I'll just ignore that. What if I run it again, will it give me the same thing? Yes, okay, so it's got the same latitude and longitude. Yeah, so there we go. Don't necessarily trust this, but it's getting the data from the API endpoint, so I don't know why it's saying it's Saturday night. Okay, what else can I do? Can you tell me what type of day it is in London? Sorry, I think I'm alright. I've got such a muscle memory for alt-tabbing that I just do it instinctively. Yeah, okay, so we get this problem. Unable to forecast data for this location. The weather service is unavailable because it's powered by the US National Weather Service, which only covers locations within the United States. So, you know, very quickly we run into a case where the tool is limited because it's using a specific API that is a US government provided. Maybe that's why it can't be trusted to tell us what day it is, because it's telling us it's using a US government provided weather API. It only has data for the US. So I mean, Claude uses the tool exactly as I've made it, so it cannot do anything outside of its scope when it calls this method, and it only tries to use that method. Try something ambiguous. You have what is the weather like in what is it? Portland. I think there's a Portland in Oregon and there's a Portland in Maine, I think it is. So let's try that in Portland, USA. Give me tips on what I could do on such day like this. Let's see what that does. So it's going to use the tool, and it's got some extra stuff to answer. Okay, so it's got the latitude and longitude. From those values, I don't know exactly which one it has picked. Let's see. That is interesting. A result here. If I expand that, okay, it just does that. It's just putting it in that format. So if I just look at the code again, there was a join here. So it's when it gets the forecast data, it joins it all, and using this as like a delimiter. So I guess that's why it's happening. But we do see that it's putting it in the format I asked for. So it's got the period, which it said was Saturday, temperature, wind, and the actual detailed forecast. So we go back to the code. Okay. So once again, Saturday night, and it's Portland, Oregon this time. Mostly cloudy with a chance of rain showers for 11 p.m. 40% chance of precipitation. Things to do on a cool, cloudy evening in Portland. Stay indoors. Yeah, thanks. Visit Pal's Books. What? Yeah, Pal's Books. Explore the museum. Embrace the weather outside. Stroll through the Japanese garden or the International Rose Garden. If the rain holds off, hike Forest Park. Layers are a good idea. 50% with chance of showers. Calls for a light jacket and an umbrella. Thanks. Why did you assume I meant Portland, Oregon? Aren't there? Isn't there? There more than one Portland? should have asked for clarification. There are indeed multiple Portlands. I made the assumption without checking the first. Next time I'll ask which Portland you mean before fetching the forecast. Yeah, go on. Why not? Yes, please. Yes, so as you see, we've got this tool to check the weather, and it's possibly a bit misleading, but it works and it gives us the data in the way we want it. Now, if I just look up here, I should be able to see where the tool was installed. So you just basically, to get these tools running, you build your code, and then you tell Claude about the fact that you've made this MCP tool. So if I look in here, I'm within Claude, so I'll leave Claude. Maybe in Claude.json. I look in here for weather. So there we go. You've got this MCP server here, and this is basically what tells Claude that when you're in this directory, you have this tool that can be used locally. Weather, and it basically tells it what command to run. So this is basically just telling it to run that Python command whenever anything to do with the weather is asked about in that session. If I go to a different directory, so if I just go to, say, documents, and I run Claude in here, let's just tell it I trust this folder. Can you tell me the weather in New York City? So this is now doing it without that MCP server, because I'm in a different location, and actually you see here that it's just not able to tell me the weather here because it can't access that in real time. So the tool really comes in handy here in opening up the capabilities of what Claude is able to do, because by default it just can't do that stuff. So by using that MCP tool, we've opened up Claude to something that we couldn't get it to do before. So anyway, that was a bit it's not the most exciting example, but it is a good illustration of what can be done. The thing I wanted to try to do then is build my own MCP server, and I've done that using Pico 8, based around the Pico 8 virtual game engine, and I'll just give you an example of what that is like now. So people basically make these game carts which get exported as PNGs, and you download them, and then you can play their games and look at the code, modify it how you want, look at all the art they've created and stuff like that. So perfect for an LLM to come along and harvest a load of people's data for its own purposes, unfortunately. So maybe the most famous example of a game is the original version of Celeste that was created for Pico 8. So just very quickly show you what it looks like. It's a retro style game, which I'm not very good at, I must say. I made the same mistake twice. But what you have as well as being able to play the game, is you can see all of the code for the game. So you can see it's all written in 1,438 lines of Lua code. All of the game logic is in this one big file here. You have all of the sprites. If we go from here to here, you can see the animations of the characters, objects and stuff like that. You also have the worlds, the game worlds in here as well. Sound effects, music. So it's pretty cool, to be honest. And these files are stored as what is called a P8 file, and it follows a very simple structure. So I just open one of these that I've got on the computer here. Maybe I'll open a different one. fact, I'll open this one. So this one is 300 lines. This is the P8 file. They follow quite a simple and structured layout. So it has some header information up here, just about, just what version you're using and some other general stuff. And then each bit that I showed you, the code, the sprites and the characters, that kind of thing, the map and the sounds and music are all put into sections. So you have this Lua section, which is where all the code goes. Then further down you have this GFX section, and obviously from the outside, from a human perspective, you can't really read this. It's like hexadecimal format that the Pico Fantasy console is able to interpret. And you have the map similar as well. This one looks actually, this is more human readable. I think this could also be hex, but maybe we're just not seeing it here. But you can actually kind of see how you've got this array. What if I do it like this, maybe? Okay, I thought I'd be able to select just part of it. I can't remember how to do that. So you've got this map area here. And in this example, we don't have any SFX or music. I think I do have one which has music and sound effects. Yeah. So you've got the SFX again, hex encoded music, like kind of like a tracker type thing, if people have ever used one of them. But basically everything is encoded in this one P8 file. And I thought what could be interesting then is to use that to have Pico write an MCP server for creating Pico 8 games, and that is exactly what has happened here. So I also had Claude create the server as well that it's then going to use to build the games. So this is a really difficult exercise for me in sort of relinquishing control and trying to actually not look at the code as much as possible, because this is an experiment in sort of vibe coding and letting Claude do everything. It's really tempting for me to always look at the code, and I must admit I have done it a bit in this case. So by now it's quite long. It's 578 lines of code, but that allows Claude to do every part of the game development in Pico 8. So it's broken down into quite manageable chunks. I'll say I won't look at the sprite, and particularly the audio creation gets a bit complicated, but the actual nuts and bolts of the core of it is quite simple. So what it does is it has these tool methods that I said before, which are ones that, if you look at Claude's interface, so if I go into this directory and I type in MCP again, it sees that I've got this Pico 8 MCP tool. And if I click on View Tools, we can see there are actually quite a lot here. So before in the weather one, we just had one, right, which was read weather at latitude and longitude. Now we have 12 tools: read Lua, write Lua, list sections, that's listing the different sections like the Lua graphics, music, etc. Read sprite, which reads sprite data out of a cart. Write sprite, which writes the sprite data in, and similar for all of these things. So there's always this symmetrical read and write thing, and also run cart, which we'll say a bit more about later. So if I just click on that, it'll tell you what it does. So read the Lua source from a P8 cart. Tool name, full name, parameters. So you just give it the path to the cart you want to read. Write Lua. Overwrite the Lua section of Pico 8 P8 cart, preserving all other sections. Okay. So the parameters there are the path you want to look up for the game, and the code you want to inject into the cart. If I look at another one, maybe if I look at write sprite, yeah, so this one has a bit more information. This one tells you what it can write into it. So it can write an 8x8 sprite into a Pico 8 graphics section. Pixels must be a flat list of 64 color indices in row major order. So it tells you, so it gives information to Claude about what it can write in there. Just a bit of context for how the sprites are formatted, how they're expected to be provided. So using these tools, I can ask Claude in a more systematic way to create a game for me. So at the moment, I actually have a prompt running, and as you can see, it actually takes a really long time for it to create these cards, even though it's only a few hundred lines of code. I think it has a lot of reasoning to do, because I'm giving it maybe not the most detailed prompt, but quite a broad outline of what I want it to do. And actually we can see that I was getting failures before because I was exceeding the maximum output tokens, which was I think 32,000. So I've doubled that, and I'm hoping this will work. But as you can see here, this is let's get it a bit more visible on the screen maybe. There is my prompt. I'm basically telling it to create a game like Outrun, which is like a retro racing game, which had a very stylized look and feel, and had this sort of like I don't know, quite cool vibe, I would say. So I'm giving it in a few lines quite a broad prompt and a place to start from, because I think it's probably aware of Outrun in its training data, and I'm trying to make it create a whole game, code, characters and scenes, music, different levels, all that kind of thing. I'm trying to get it to do all of that in just one prompt. I'm trying to do these single shot prompts just to see what happens basically, and I don't think it's probably really the best way to work. I think really what you would do is iterate over time. So it's probably not surprising then that what I showed you earlier, if we go back, if we leave the lovely world of Celeste and enter and change a different game. So actually, apart from Celeste, Claude has made all of these games for me. So it's made some like classic games like Pong, and actually Pong Claude made before I started using the NPC stuff. Okay, so in fact there's an error in there since the last time I ran it. So I'll just try a different one instead then. So Snake was the first game I had it make with the MCP server. So the MCP server developed over time. The first things we had were just read Lua and write Lua. So at first it was only capable of creating the code for the game. So what it would do to do that is, if I just find it down here. Okay, so when you say run Lua, write Lua, it gets this function, it gets the path to the cart, which in this case is just snake.p8. And if it didn't exist, it creates it with the basic headers. And then it will parse the cart, which basically is this function here, which splits, which goes line by line and finds the section, returns each section, the header, and then each section one by one as a dictionary. So the section would be something like a dictionary which has the underscore Lua underscore as the key, and then the actual content of that section as the value. So it gets all of those out. It parses them, reads them out, and then when it's writing Lua, it will just get the Lua section and plonk all of the Lua code in there. So this is probably quite inefficient and error prone. So if you wanted to change just one line of the code, what it actually first has to do is read out the Lua code. So it parses the cart, gets all of the Lua code out of it, and then modifies that in place, finds the line it wants to modify and changes it, and then writes cart, it just plonks it back in with that edit. So it doesn't really do it in a very nice way. I think that is prone to errors. I haven't seen any errors come out of it, but it is a bit error prone, I think. Anyway, So to make Snake, it just had to create the cart and then dump all of this lure code in there, and everything else is empty. Put that in as a placeholder for the graphics, but it doesn't do anything. All of the graphics for Snake is actually drawn in place, and in fact you can see that here. This is where it's drawing the snake. So based on the size of the snake, it will just basically fill a rectangle with a certain colour, and I think the colour varies for the length of the snake. So if I just go back here and run, so here we go. We have this fairly basic snake game, right? With no, it doesn't let you go off the screen in this one. That was its own decision. So all of the graphics, which must admittedly are fairly minimal, were created within the actual lure code. Yeah. So there we go. Not that exciting. I won't. Well, it's getting a bit faster. It's getting a bit faster. I won't bore you with the details of this too much. Depending on how long it goes on. I'm kind of hoping I just die out soon so I can quit it, because it does kind of get fairly addictive. And obviously this game isn't that involved, right? So it wasn't too difficult, I think, for Claude to put this together, and it's using very basic geometry to draw everything. It's just squares, circles, and you have the score counter, that kind of thing. It's not that much to it. Oh, there we go. So that's game over. So that was the first thing I asked it to do, and it didn't take very long to do that. I did then prompt it. I've got it in a note somewhere here. I've been keeping copious notes about all of this, just to get an idea of Claude's thought process as we go along. And I wanted Claude to get creative doing this at some point. So, I told it to make Snake, I told it to make Pong at first, and then I told it, let's see, I wrote the word creative somewhere, being creative. Okay, so at the point that I did this, we'd be making games which, were quite simple. We had this game here, again, no sounds. It was drawing sprites by this point. Quite simple looking games, but I was still prompting it. I gave it an idea to make a game of like a mage in a forest fighting away these demons, but I actually then gave Claude free rein to make what it wanted. So I asked it, using everything we've learned so far, would you be able to create a game for me? The story and gameplay are totally up to you. Try to give the game a good hook by having one core mechanic. Feel free to draw from any sources you wish, sci-fi, fantasy, literature, whatever. And it came back with this pitch. Stealth game set in the palace of King Argos. You are Echo, a nymph cursed by Hera to only repeat others' words. You've discovered you can project a ghost of your recent movements as a decoy. The palace guards will always chase your Echo, not you. Use this to steal the golden fleece and escape. Core mechanic. Press Z to drop a ghost that loops your last few seconds of movement. Guards chase it, you go somewhere else entirely. The intended strategy is to lead guards toward one part of the palace, drop your Echo to keep them busy, then dart to the fleece and back to the exit before the Echo fades. I had a few iterations on this because it would fail to load, stuff like that, and I think maybe I may have saved different versions of this that could be interesting. No, we just iterated on it, but the first version of the game, I think all the levels basically look the same. There's one type of enemy, and one of the levels was impossible because I would spawn right where an enemy landed. So I did have a few iterations on this where I asked it to create more maps, to create different enemies, different themes for each level, of increasing difficulty. But first, let's just have a play on it. Oh, sorry. Load Echo. Run. Okay. So here we are. Fairly. Okay. so if I drop, so what the idea is that it'll chase a fleece. All right. So if I put that fleece there, then it will. Those enemies should follow that fleece and not bother me in any way. It's not entirely obvious if that's actually happening. So I get this golden fleece, and I go to the exit. Okay, it's level 1 complete. Now I'm onto a new level, which is kind of similar to the other one, just with a different sort of geometry and different blocks for the walls and stuff. Although I am kind of stuck there, I notice. So I have to get down and out before that other enemy gets there. You know, it's not really clear how much the enemies are chasing the fleece. You see that one there is kind of going towards it a bit, but the object is always the same. I take this, run down here, and go to this exit, and then it's level 2 done. Now onto this level, we see some different enemies. We've got this thing flying towards me immediately. Something you might notice though is that this is impossible. I can't traverse this water, I'm just stuck. So I'm doomed to just be killed by this thing every time. If I put the fleece down, it'll go to that though, I think. Let's see if I can make that more obvious. So instead of coming straight to me, that thing should go towards the fleece. Okay. Let's try it again. One more time. Okay, see, so it's going to the fleece, not me. But I am unfortunately trapped here. Have a look here. We can see that Claude has actually written 222 lines of Lua code for this game. It's created all of the characters using the sprite sheets. So this is the playable character, Hera. You can see if I click here, it gets these animations. It's not the most creative animation you can imagine, but if I just go between this, you can see how that animates and that kind of thing. You also get the levels here. So there you can see all of the maps it's created. I think by this point we also didn't have any sound either, which as you will come to see is probably not a bad thing. What is really interesting with this is looking at what Claude is thinking under the hood. So it gives you, like quite a high level overview of what it's going to do. But if you kind of like dig in and look in more detail, you can see that it creates quite detailed plans for itself, and it will present the information in quite neat ways. So it will tabulate everything like this. So these are all the levels with exactly how many guards are in there, the speed of the guards, the theme of the levels. It reasons about how it's going to do the walking animations for characters, what frames exactly they need to go to in the sprites. It took again about 40 minutes. It's quite a long prompt. So in fact, yeah, here I've pasted what it planned for itself. So this is not necessarily something it's telling me, it's something it uses to guide its own development. So it talks about what it's doing. It's just like what the overall aim is, the current state, including the sprites and where they are in the sprite sheet by index, the features we've requested, what decisions it needs to make. And a lot of this is internal, right? Like I don't necessarily know what it means when it's saying this kind of thing. So it's saying that these sprite types are things that if the user encounters, they can't pass through them. It's got the constraints, so it's picked up the fact that it needs to constrain this, and it tells itself what it needs to produce. So it's, it's good insight into what Claude is doing, and here's its list of all the different sprites that it's adding and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting, and when you do it in this MCP kind of way, I think Claude could probably do this Pico 8 generation without having an MCP server. But what is good about doing this is that it gives it a structured way of doing it. Where are we? Okay, so it's getting somewhere with the racing game. So let's just see how long that takes. We might be able to just play that live on the spot here, something I haven't seen before. Because what I showed you at the beginning was a Street Fighter-esque game that I had to create, and to be honest, it's really bad. It's not an enjoyable experience. I'll just show you that again. Run Fighter Legends. Load Fighter Legends. Run. Okay, I don't know why that is having a problem. Okay, it's fine now. Okay, so all the characters look mostly the same. They've got no detail in the in them. So I just choose this one. This level. Okay, so you get the point of this one. I showed it earlier. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's Claude also didn't really make the most of the tools in this case. As you can see here, he didn't use that. He didn't create any sprites. He didn't create any levels. He did create some sounds. So look at that sound for being hit. Look at that. All very video gaming. So these are fine. The music. Not destined to become future classics, I don't think. But there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of different sound effects and all that going on here. I don't know why Claude didn't create the sprites here. I think it's because if I look for my prompt, the prompt I gave it was a bit longer here. Where is that? Okay, here. So this was the prompt I gave it. Quite a bit more detailed. You know, just telling it to create a cast of characters with different fighting styles. Levels should be varied and themed with different cultural artifacts, like Street Fighter kind of does. How long each round should last, and how many rounds there should be. What should happen when the round ends. So I gave it this one. I gave it a fair bit more information. I think the reason it didn't use the sprites and just drew them in code is because I said this. The character sprites take about half or slightly less than half of the screen, so they feel human-like. Because all the other sprites I'd created were like these tiny little 8x8 characters, and that's actually something that is built into the MCP server. So if I look at the right sprite again, it says that it writes 8x8 sprites into the thing, and an 8x8 sprite is basically this size here. So each rectangle here is 8x8. So at the moment, maybe like in analogy to the weather MCP server, this tool is only capable of writing sprites that are 8x8 in size. So if I wanted to make it bigger, and there's no reason that it is constrained to that. If we look at how do I close the game? I forgot to just restart Pico. If we look at Celeste again, I think it'll probably have examples of sprites that are bigger than 8x8. Yeah, so you see these kind of sprites, they're taking up multiple slots. So these character ones are 8x8 still, but in fact there's no reason for them to be constrained to being just that size. So like that, you see, is a lot bigger than 8x8. Start here, it's probably like 64 by 64 or something like that. So it's only drawing its characters as 8x8 figures. But what is interesting about this is that we give Claude a set of reusable and bite-size methods to use. So rather than just saying like create me a Pico 8 game and it'll go away and just do it with in an unstructured way, now it has a set of tools to use and break it down into different stages. So it knows, okay, now I'm working on the logic of the game. I've got to write to the lure function, or I'm focusing on the graphics. So write to this function and we give it a description of what it can do and what is expected. So it gives it just a bit more context and a bit of scaffolding to do the work. And I think that probably helps in how it reasons about it and how it creates it. So let's have a look here. It's created the game. So our Outrun game is created. Pseudo 3D road rendering. So it's called Neon Cruise. So it's taken the advice of making a sort of retro, vibey synthwave idea by the sound of it. What we should do is play on it. So where am I here? So just one thing I should do, and I should make the MCP server do this, I think, is I've got to copy the cart to the location. So let's copy Neon Cruise to application, library, application, support, Pico 8 carts here. Okay, so let's see. Quite often the first thing I see is an error, and that's a point actually. Pico 8 is not actually able to Claude is not actually able to, unfortunately, run these games. So it has no way of determining whether or not it will work. And especially in terms of like the music and the graphics, it doesn't really know what it looks like either. So it's kind of stabbing in the dark. But let's just see if it works. Load mage flight run. Oh, it's the wrong game. Clear screen. Load Neon Cruise run. Okay, it ran without any errors. That's impressive. I mean, you can also always crash during the game. So there we go. We've got a start screen. We've got this kind of like neon-drenched sunset. Let's see. Okay, it looks. I mean, it kind of looks cool, doesn't it? There we go. You have to hold Z to keep on the gas. That's a bit annoying. Doesn't seem to be any sound. Oh, fairly abrupt change in the weather, but that's okay. I told it to put in obstacles. So far, I haven't really hit anything. It's going really fast. So this is kind of it's a demake. I'm going at 320 kilometers per hour. Back to the original place. I can go on the grass here. So if I don't hold the gas, nothing happens. So I do that. You know, actually, like, this isn't a good game, obviously. It's not. There's nothing to it. Nothing happens. I just have to press Z endlessly. There's no obstacles to hit. I can press. How do I use the boost? I think I use the boost. But it's not. It's done everything I asked for, basically, except the obstacles. There's no music. It's missing the synthwave music. Let's have a look at the cards. It ignored my request to draw the sprites again. And it didn't create any sound for this one. So all it did this time really is write the Lua code. So 471 lines of code. And we've got things like neon billboard in city, traffic, cars, power-ups. And then it's drawing all of the world in the code itself. It's not quite what I asked for, but probably, in my opinion, not as bad as its attempt at writing Street Fighter. As I said, Claude is not actually capable of running these carts to validate itself. There is a tool which it created called Run Cart, which it runs Pico 8 and gets the output from that. So it actually, there is a command for in Pico 8 to run the carts in headless mode, and you get like logging information. We were able to catch some syntax errors doing that, but not all of them. So it attempted to give itself some tools to validate it. There was another iteration we worked on at some point, which it created like a screenshot grabber for itself. So it would run the cart and try to make a screenshot for it so that it could look at the image and see if everything was laid out geometrically as it expected it to be. We didn't really take that any further, but I might look into adding that in again. I did have some to do's, so I'll extend it so that it doesn't just draw these sprites of that size, automatically copy things. I've got a handheld console, which I'm curious to put these games on and play them there. And then also I'm going to ask Claude if it is missing anything from its server, if there are any tools that would help it in developing these games. So if we just look at one with sound, yeah, here's a complete cart basically, and as we can see, it's got the slots for the SFX, the music, and stuff like that. So Claude is making these full Pico 8 games, which I'm playing on, and I must admit, while it's a fun technical exercise, the games are not fun. Maybe that's down to my prompting, or maybe it's missing the human ingenuity. Probably a bit of both, but they're not fun games to play. Bugs aside, they just have no life to them or anything like that. So while it's a valiant technical effort from Claude, I don't think they're going to be getting anywhere near levels of popularity as existing games. So yeah, that was just a look at this building an MCP server to give Claude a bit more capability and a bit more of a standard for interfacing between it and existing applications I've got on my computer. There are good uses for this, and I think if you use stuff like Notion, like these knowledge databases, you can connect it to that, and then from the terminal, Claude is able to basically have all of your organizational knowledge at its fingertips to use, and you can use it with things like Jira for creating tickets, reading tickets, and all that kind of stuff. And like, you could probably even design, if you design a ticket well enough, you could probably ask Claude to make a feature based on the information in the ticket. Or you could, it says here for databases. So in terms of databases, it's just like a natural language interface for using a database. So maybe rather than writing your SQL queries by hand, you could just say to Claude, "Oh, I want these. I want these. The records meeting this specific criteria. Like, give me all the people who were born between this date and that date in a population database or something." Giving it write access is probably a bit more risky, obviously, but yeah. So that's the model context protocol, and that's the end of another video.